beyond the Veil of Twilight. The last light of autumn bled across the horizon as Elian stood at the forest's edge. Behind him lay the dying village with its leaning cottages and fallow fields. Before him stretched the ancient woods that had haunted his dreams since childhood. Tonight, they called to him with voices both familiar and strange. "Those seasons famished in myriad dreams," he whispered, his grandmother's verses rising unbidden to his lips. Before the blight had withered her mind and twisted her body, she had warned him. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. He touched the scar along his palm, 3 precise cuts she had made during her final delirium, forming a symbol he still couldn't decipher. The key, she had rasped before death claimed her, to the door that waits for you, but beware the one who hungers between worlds. From the village came the sound of weeping, another child lost to the fever. The blight that had begun in the crops now consumed the people, as though the land itself had turned against them. Elian had nothing left to lose. The disease had taken his mother and sister weeks ago. "For yet a feast of forest wine I would adorn," Elian murmured, stepping beneath the first twisted oaks. The air changed immediately, thicker, sweeter, charged with whispers. The light filtering through branches seemed to bend around him, creating pockets of absolute darkness beside pools of impossible brilliance. As he ventured deeper, the rational part of his mind recognized madness in following a dream. But rationality had abandoned him the moment she had appeared in his dreams 3 nights ago. A figure with eyes like obsidian stars, moving through moonlit clearings. "Come find me," she had whispered, her voice the rustling of autumn leaves. "I await where twilight lingers longest." Blood dripped from his palm where he had reopened his grandmother's cuts, leaving crimson breadcrumbs absorbed too eagerly by hungry soil. Time stretched and compressed until Elian could no longer say how long he had been walking or how far. "I'm dreaming while walking," he realized aloud. "Indeed," came a voice behind him, melodious but discordant, like broken glass sliding against silk. The boundaries between waking and dreaming thin in these woods, as do the boundaries between other things. Elian turned to face a figure tall and elegant, clothed in living shadow. Its face shifted constantly between visages beautiful and grotesque, only the eyes remaining constant, black as forgotten wells, with pupils like inverted stars. "What are you?" Elian managed to ask. The figure's smile split too wide across its face. "I am Moriath, tender of nightmares, collector of dreaming souls. This realm between realms is my hunting ground." "Dream demon," Elian whispered, remembering his grandmother's tales. "Such limited terminology," Moriath sighed, "but close enough for your understanding." It circled Elian with predatory grace. "You seek the threshold, do you not? The passage between worlds." "Let me pass," Elian demanded. "For a price?" Moriath's smile deepened. "A small taste of memory, something precious you'll hardly miss." "No," Elian said firmly, remembering his grandmother's warnings about bargains in the woods. Moriath's form darkened, edges blurring into the surrounding shadows. "Then find your own way through the dreaming, mortal. But know this, all paths through these woods are my domain. We'll meet again before your journey ends." With that, the figure dissolved into mist that seeped into the ground, leaving behind the scent of rotting flowers. Elian continued following the pull in his chest, his steps haunted by the sense of watching eyes. Eventually, he came upon a clearing perfectly circular, as though carved by a giant's compass. At its center stood an ancient oak split down the middle by lightning, forming a natural archway. Beyond that threshold lay absolute darkness, a darkness that breathed. To autumn's decree a world hath been slain, he whispered, recognizing this place from his dreams. From beyond the archway came her voice, and forever the stars shall wander untamed, like a fable of thieves lost in the wind. She emerged from between the halves of the split oak, her silhouette shimmering against the darkness. In her hand, she carried a black rose inscribed by the ink of winter's darkest dream. Their eyes met across the clearing, and Elian felt the first tremor of something both magnificent and terrible. "You trespass," she said, her voice like autumn leaves crushed underfoot. "I seek only salvation," Elian replied, touching the scar on his palm. Her smile revealed teeth too sharp for comfort. "Words have power here, names even more so." She approached with preternatural grace, her dark robes flowing around her like liquid shadow. "What shall I call you, wayfarer?" "Elian," he told her, though something whispered that he should not have. Names have power, as she said, and in giving her his, he had surrendered the first piece of himself. "And you? What are you called?" "I have been called many things, across many ages," she said. "Priestess, oracle, witch." Her eyes, black as midnight pools, regarded him with ancient hunger. "You may call me Moira." Elian approached the threshold, heart thundering against his ribs. The darkness wasn't merely absence of light, it moved with purpose, reaching tendrils toward him that curled around his fingers with possessive hunger. "Where I am but a dream within her dream," he whispered, and stepped through. The world beyond held the same shape as the one he had left. Trees and sky, earth and stone, yet everything vibrated with heightened significance. Colors bled into one another. Scents carried memories not his own. The moon hung impossibly large overhead, casting light enough to turn night into a spectral day. Moira waited for him, in a glade carpeted with flowers that opened and closed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Her skin rippled with patterns that moved like ink in water. Her eyes held galaxies. "You came," she said, her voice resonating not in his ears, but inside his skull. "I had no choice," Elian replied, raising his bleeding palm. "Everyone has choice," she corrected. "You chose to follow dream rather than reason, to seek enchantment rather than endure the mundane. Such choice defines the boundaries between ordinary souls and those who belong to Twilight." "Who are you?" Elian asked, though he suspected names held dangerous power here. "I am she who waits between seasons," she answered. "She who guards the threshold between what is and what might be. Some call me Fate, others Muse." She stepped closer, and flowers withered beneath her bare feet. "To you, I can be salvation or damnation. That too is your choice." "There was another," Elian said hesitantly, "in the woods. It called itself Moriath." Her expression darkened, the patterns on her skin writhing faster. "The dream demon. Did you bargain with it?" "No." "Good. Moriath feeds on possibility, on the futures that might have been. It would devour your potential rather than allow transition." She extended her hand, the black rose now twisting in her grasp, as though alive. "Come, the night is young, and there is much to show you." They traveled through landscapes impossible in their geometry. Forests where trees grew upside down, valleys where the ground breathed, mountains that rearranged themselves when not directly observed. At times, Elian glimpsed Moriath watching their progress, a silhouette of wrong angles always just at the periphery of vision. "Long ago," she told him as they rested beside a pool whose waters showed Elian moments from his childhood, "your kind and mine were not separated. We moved freely between realms, sharing knowledge and power." "What happened?" he asked, looking away from unsettling visions of his grandmother conversing with beings of shadow. "Fear," she said simply. "Fear and greed. Humans sought to capture our magic, to bend it to their will, to possess rather than commune." "And what followed?" "War," she said. "A war that scarred both worlds. The victors erected barriers between realms that have held for 1,000 years. But now those barriers fail. The blight in your world is but one symptom." They arrived at a circular temple whose pillars were living trees twisted into spirals. At its center stood an altar of obsidian, and upon it lay a book bound in material that shifted between leather, metal, and liquid shadow. "The Book of Twilight," she explained. "Within its pages are written all passages between worlds, all thresholds, all transitions." "What are you proposing?" Elian asked, sensing the dangerous bargain approaching.
"Your world faces darkness, blight, disease, conflict. My world faces dissolution as ancient magic wanes. Together, they might find renewal."
"Through what means?" "Through union," she whispered, trailing fingers along his cheek. "A marriage of worlds begins with a marriage of souls." From the shadows emerged Moriath, its form more substantial here. "She hasn't told you everything, dream child. Ask her about the price of her bargain." "Ignore it," she urged. "Dream demons twist truth until it poisons. While Twilight Fae speak half-truths that ensnare just as effectively," Moriath countered. "Ask her what becomes of those who accept her offer." Elian stepped away from both beings. "Show me," he demanded. "Both of you. Show me what becomes of my village in your versions of the future." The Fae woman gestured at the Book of Twilight. Its pages turned, releasing mist that formed images. The village succumbing to blight, then another vision of fields recovering, springs flowing with clean water, but shadows moving at the edges of perception. "Magic brings wonder and terror alike," she commented. "Your people would relearn ancient wisdoms." Moriath breathed darkness into the mist. The images shifted, showing the village transformed into a place of nightmare. People walked with empty eyes, puppeteered by shadow selves that fed on their dreams. "In my world," Moriath explained, "suffering ends because distinction ends. No more separation between nightmare and reality." "And if I refuse you both?" Elian asked. The mist darkened, showing his village abandoned, reclaimed by twisted vegetation, a slow, grotesque transformation rather than renewal. "The old barriers fall regardless," she said. "I merely offer direction to what follows." "What becomes of me if I choose either path?" Elian asked directly. "You would walk between worlds, but belong to neither," she answered. "You would know wonders beyond mortal imagining, and sorrows beyond mortal endurance." "You would become the nightmare rather than its victim," Moriath said. "You would dissolve the false boundaries of self and other." Elian closed his eyes, searching his heart. Perhaps there was a third path, neither preservation nor dissolution, but transformation on his own terms. "I need to return first," he declared, "to say goodbye." Both beings reacted with surprise, she with calculation, Moriath with something like respect. "Return is dangerous," she warned. "The longer you remain in your world after crossing the threshold, the harder finding your way back becomes." 3 days, she conceded finally. "The passage remains open 3 days. If you haven't returned by the third sunset, the way closes forever." For 3 days, Elian moved through the village like a revenant, settling his affairs and saying silent goodbyes. Few noticed him. Those who did averted their eyes, sensing his otherness. In dreams each night, Moriath came to him, offering visions of dissolution that grew more tempting with each visit. But when Elian woke, he remembered the emptiness in the dream demon's inverted stars. On the third day, as sunset approached, he returned to the forest's edge. The path shifted treacherously, landmarks rearranging themselves, leading him in circles. The human world sought to reclaim him, while the other world receded like a dream upon waking. "Where thy gaze painted embers in my soul," he called into the gathering darkness. "Unto her law I pursue and caress." For a moment, nothing answered. Then, faintly, "And forever the stars shall wander untamed." Elian followed her voice, pushing through underbrush that tore at his skin, leaving behind strips of humanity with each wound. Moriath kept pace, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, sometimes merely a presence in peripheral vision. "You still have not chosen," the dream demon observed. "Preservation or dissolution? Her path or mine?" "Perhaps there is another way," Elian replied. He finally stumbled into the clearing with the lightning-struck tree. The archway stood as before, but the darkness beyond had thinned to mere shadow. Moira waited on one side of the archway, the black rose now blooming with unnatural vigor in her grasp. Moriath stood on the other, light and shadow, equally dangerous in their absolute convictions. "The passage closes," she said. "Choose now." The night of Fernach had arrived, cloaked in mist that clung to the ancient trees like spectral garments. Moira had prepared for days, gathering herbs that only bloomed under moonlight, carving symbols into the center stone near the archway, weaving crowns of yew and rowan. She approached Elian with a blade, not iron, but something far older, a curved length of darkness that seemed to be made from obsidian or something deeper than stone. She stood before him, her eyes now entirely black, reflecting nothing. "The seeds of iniquity germinate in my skin," she recited, "for Acheron's river runs through my vein." She raised the blade. "Will you open yourself to the darkness beyond the veil? Will you become the gateway for the twilight blessing?" In that moment of clarity, Elian understood at last what she intended. Not partnership, but sacrifice. Not transcendence, but possession. He was to be not the priest, but the offering. The vessel emptied so that something else might fill it. Elian reached out, not to either being, but to the threshold itself. He placed his scarred palm against the center of the archway. Light bloomed from the cuts his grandmother had made, the unique radiance of twilight. "I choose neither preservation nor dissolution," he declared. "Neither twilight nor nightmare. I choose transformation on my own terms." Power surged through the symbol in his palm, rewriting the passage between worlds. The archway twisted, expanded, transformed into something new, neither fully open nor fully closed, but permeable, conditional. Both beings recoiled as the nature of the threshold changed. "What have you done?" she demanded, the black rose in her hand withering instantly to dust. "Impossible," Moriath whispered, its form growing less substantial. "My grandmother wasn't marking me as guardian or sacrifice," Elian realized. "She was giving me the means to remake the boundary itself." The blade descended despite Moira's shock, opening a line of fire across Elian's chest. Blood welled, not scarlet, but black as ink, flowing down his body to pool at his feet. The earth drank it greedily, and where it touched, the ground seemed to ripple like water struck by stone. Something moved in that silence, something vast and ancient, formless, yet possessed of terrible intent. Elian felt it consider him, assess the offering his blood, and surrender represented. And then it surged forward, not with physical motion, but with a shift in reality itself. It poured into him like liquid shadow, filling the spaces between his cells, coiling around his thoughts, like a serpent of cold fire. His vision fractured, showing him not just the physical world, but layers of existence stacked like translucent pages. Past, present, future, all occurring simultaneously. Through the kaleidoscope of new perception, Elian saw Moira clearly at last. Not human, not truly. A vessel herself, centuries ago, now a hybrid thing sustained by rituals and sacrifice, by the slow consumption of mortal devotion. But unlike those before him, he remained conscious through the transformation, directing it rather than surrendering to it. His body dissolved and reformed, flesh becoming light, bone becoming shadow, blood becoming the ink with which new realities are written. When it was done, what remained of Moira crumbled to dust that the wind scattered among the ancient stones. Moriath, too, faded away, unable to feed on a transformation freely chosen rather than imposed. He stepped through his transformed threshold. His final human thought emerged as both declaration and promise. Where I am but a dream, within her dream, I shall dream my own awakening. Years passed. The village recovered slowly, guided not by unseen fey influences or nightmare dissolution, but by a new understanding of the boundaries between worlds. Neither fully open nor fully closed, the forest became a place where those with proper preparation could glimpse the other world without being consumed by it. Children spoke of a figure glimpsed at twilight, neither man nor spirit, but a translator between realities. New stories emerged, new poems celebrating this bridge-maker who had refused the absolutism of both preservation and dissolution. Along the forest's edge, strange flowers bloomed, crimson petals surrounding centers that shifted between light and shadow. At their heart grew tiny black roses, perfect in their miniature complexity. The villagers called them Elian's choice, and they gathered them carefully at twilight, brewing teas that granted glimpses beyond ordinary perception without surrendering to either enchantment or nightmare. For in choosing his own path, Elian had revealed a third option. Not submission to external power, but transformation through conscious choice. Not surrender, but transcendence.